Thanks to Massdrop for sponsoring this video. They use the power of group buys to save you money on several different curated items in lots of different categories. I'm going to open these up for later. These are actually good speakers, so... Oh, I need a sub. Okay, yeah, I'll come back to that after I do the ad. Right now, they want me to talk about this. This is a DAC amp. It's tiny. It's up to 24-bit, 192 kilohertz. You guys can see all the specs here on the screen. I have not tried this out yet. They do have decently low output impedance. I like that they've listed that. This drop is good for just a few more days, and as you can see here, the MSRP is 150, but thanks to the group buy, they're bringing it down to 99. It's limited to 350 units, so go on over there and check it out, and again, thanks to Massdrop. So last week we teased it. This week it's real. That's it. That's the Tech Syndicate mouse right there. We've got one right here. I don't know if you can see the lighting in there. It's a purple LED because it's our mouse, so I can do whatever I want. There's a purple LED in there. You have one, Wendell? You using one right now by chance?
Yes. And actually I was playing Fistful of Frags. I streamed it, and I was actually leading, which is never happens.
It's the God mouse. At QuakeCon last year, we brought this mouse there to test it out, and everyone was calling it the God mouse. Anyway, I'll just go through the specs really quickly here. We decided to use the 3310. That's an infrared sensor from PixArt. It's the same thing as the Avago PWM 3310, and it has no acceleration whatsoever. It was really important to use that one for me because I wanted something that's extremely accurate. And, I've got the Omron switches. I believe these are the 50 million click ones. We changed them a couple times. I'll double check and put that on the website, but I believe these are the 50 million click Omron ones, but they're the ones that have the best feel in my opinion. And then we put a rubberized coating on this. We basically just went and found a factory that we liked in China and found a really good mouse in China. And then we were like, you know what, let's take that one because it's going to be cheaper to do it this way. Take a mold that already exists, modify it to what we want, add a rubberized coating, change the sensor, change a couple of the features. Kane actually did a lot of work making sure that the button clicks felt better. They changed the mold slightly for us to make the button clicks feel better. So we started off like that, and that's going to keep the price really low for you guys because it's a pre-existing mold. And for this, that'll be version 1 of our mouse. It's the standard issue, and then there's no software with this mouse either. So if you're someone who needs like a gazillion macros or want to play MMOs, it may not be the right mouse for you, but if you want something that's extremely accurate, you just plug it into any computer and it immediately works, then that's kind of the angle we're going with this mouse. And that's why it's called the standard issue, and that's also why it's $35. So I would, if you can find a mouse that's more accurate than this for $35, I will do a handstand and probably sprain my kneecap trying to do it. That'll be fun to watch.
It also, because of the sensor choice, it is designed to track on a mouse pad, not anything else.
Highly important to know that because this sensor is an infrared sensor, and it's also, you need a dark mouse pad. If you have a white mouse pad, it may work, but the only thing that we're going to guarantee as far as, this thing being extremely accurate is a dark colored mouse pad. You guys can get those in the store too. So we did go and make a couple different options here in the store. I'll show you just real quick, and then we'll get on with this show. You can go and grab this up with a mouse pad bundle, or you can grab it with the desk mat bundle, and that save you some money. You can get the whole thing together. Anyway, it's for sale. There it is. Very soft launch. Maybe we'll send some of these out of the press or whatever, but we didn't get that many of them. So if we spend a ton of money on marketing, we're just going to sell out and be like, well, all the mice are gone. So this is our marketing right now. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about everything that's happening this week. Quick mention, last week we mentioned, there may be from Slovakia to, where did I say, Austria? There might be what's the word I'm looking for? A Hyperloop. Yes, they might be building a Hyperloop there. Well, it looks like Paris to Amsterdam. They're also talking about that. So very interesting. I think Europe is going to be so interesting if they get the Hyperloop in place. There's already so many cool quick flights that you can do in Europe. There's a great train infrastructure going between all the major cities. But if the Hyperloop is in Europe, well, everything will be really, really accessible. Be really awesome. I would like that. So quick mention there.
Europe will have to let us know what you think about that because we wouldn't know.
Yeah. But if you're like, I hate it. Hyperloop is dumb. Pizza. Why are they letting Jar Jar Binks name restaurants? You so want to go to Itza? It's, it's the first restaurant run by Gungans. Ugh. I don't even know.
Animatronic gun guns in this case.
Yeah, well, there's actually people they're behind the scenes, but it's the first restaurant that you have no human interaction. This is like the introvert's fast food restaurant. So the way this works is you go inside and you place your order. It's all done digitally. And then there's a couple people like behind a wall, and they prepare your food and they put it into a plastic bin. So that's stage one. I'm imagining stage two, they'll figure out a way to do away with the human element behind the scenes. But they are able to cut down on the price by removing the whole front man. And also, it makes things nice and quick because the lines are going to be quicker. There's like just lots and lots of tablets. You go over there and you make your order on these tablets here, and then it just drops in there. How do you guys feel about that? Is that okay to walk into a place and have no human interaction? I mean, I know there's some of you guys out there that are persnickety about your sandwiches. You want exactly 17 onions, and you want them to all be on the left side because you want to have one bite later on without any onions. There's a lot of weird, I guess there's making a sandwich or something. There's a lot of finesse in that. Making a bowl of quinoa, which is what this is, there's probably a lot of finesse in that too. But I don't know. Let us know how you feel about this. I'm kind of interested in it, but we'll see where it goes. It may be the future. I don't know. It looks kind of sterile in there.
Robotic restaurants are sort of all the rage. I mean, there are definitely experimental restaurants all around the world where this one isn't robotic, I guess, because there's a kitchen staff, but it is automated in the ordering process, and it is automated in some of the other stuff that goes into it. So we also read about this week that there was a restaurant in Japan that has a robotic wait staff where the kitchen staff does their thing, and then they put the tray on a robot that then delivers it to your table. And that's
that's China actually. It says China. I think somewhere in the article it says Japan, but it's in China, so it's in northeastern China. But yeah, I'd be curious to check that out too. I don't really see the need for
gerbs.
They're going to take all of the jobs, all of them. But baristas will be last because that's where you go get your non-fat, tall, skinny whip soy latte. And that's difficult for a robot to do because you have so many variables in there. It's like, I don't even know all this nonsense. All right. Let's talk about Google and Apple and Amazon and all these big companies and whatnot. So Google's cloud is starting to get a little bit bigger. And this article here in Business Insider is like, warning, Amazon AWS is going to just go out of business now because they're losing millions and millions of dollars to Google. So Apple has not really been too upfront about what cloud storage services they're using, but it's obvious they're using AWS and they're using Microsoft. They've been using a number of different services. Now they've switched over to Google Cloud, it seems, because they've just done a huge deal between $400 and $600 million with Google's cloud service. That's okay. One thing that's interesting about this is Android and Apple. Those are two vastly different ecosystems, but Apple's putting that aside to work with Google on a different level. So yeah. I don't know if this is actually the all doom and gloom for AWS, though, but Google's cloud platform could be, I don't know. What if it starts to get huge and starts to eat up some of AWS's revenue? That could be interesting, but I just don't see that happening quite yet because AWS is there, and the digital world is growing at a rate that they lose one client, they're going to gain another one. Maybe once things slow down a bit, I'd be worried for them, but I'm not exactly worried like the Business Insider article is that's probably trying to scare some stockholders or something. I don't know. Do you have a different take on this?
Yeah, the thing that Google hasn't figured out is customer service. And it's because they sort of have always had an indirect relationship with their customers because of ads and things like that. They're used to very sophisticated customers. And Google has historically just not done well at all managing their customers, even their big AdWords accounts. And I'm sure that's difficult for them to hear, but I think that's one of the reasons why Amazon has done so well with cloud computing. It's not that Amazon was particularly brilliant with their cloud computing strategy. It's that Amazon had created this massive customer service infrastructure for their other businesses, and then they were like, hey, we can use our computers and just sell space on our computers and have that be a thing. And that's why Amazon was the Amazon Web Services historically were just laughably unstable in the beginning, and then they were just merely awful. And now they only go down like maybe once a year, which is not actually that bad. It's pretty good. And so I think that Google is in the unfortunate position of, it's like, well, we don't really want to sell to the unwashed masses because the people in Google are just way too smart for that. but they can capture
deal with it.
customers like Apple and some other stuff, and maybe they can sort of move the bottom line that way. And I think that some of the recent hires in Google is sort of that's the direction that they're going in. And Google also announced this week that they're selling Boston Dynamics, the robotics division out of Boston, and so it's an alphabet sort of strategy thing. It's really an interesting shakeup inside of Google. I think Google's best acquisition, if they're going to go in this direction with cloud computing, would be to acquire some kind of a company that is run by middle intelligence people that can figure out how to exploit Google products for the market in a way that they're able to support their customers a little better, because Google has to sort of show people how to use the magic in order to really do that. And they've done that on the developer side, like Paul Irish, their developer, evangelist who, is a good PR guy, but, still also wicked smart. They need to do that with their sort of consumer-facing products. And it's not exactly consumer-facing, it's really just small business-facing. But, the whole Google Apps for small business has not done as well as it should, because for small business, it's kind of a rat's nest of customer support. And when you have a problem, it's just like, I don't know, it's your problem. Our infrastructure's fine. Deal with it.
Google needs like a buffer between them and the unwashed masses, is what you're saying, I guess, right?
Yeah. And Microsoft has done well with customer service with Office 365, but I think Amazon, because they were basically doing retail, but not retail. It's like online retail, the equivalent of retail. They've had to deal with the brunt of unwashed masses. People, at least on the Microsoft support side, not really a lot of people call Microsoft for support on Windows, which is genius of Microsoft setup. But when somebody buys a broken Kindle or whatever, they're going to be calling Amazon.
I had a funny joke, but I've forgotten it. I guess that doesn't make up for it, though. This is an interesting question here, but it was posed by, I'll just go ahead and read the title of this next bit. Young people would rather have an internet connection than daylight. Now, before we go into this study was done by a company that makes blinds. So that's totally discredited everything in this thing, because, of course, if a company that makes blinds, which is a device to block out the sun, of course they're going to say that people don't want daylight. They'd rather have internet. It's good for their company, yeah, of course. Anyway, I just wanted to read this out as, and I wanted to put it as a question to you. What do you need to live? Do you need sunlight to live? Could you be happy in a world without sunlight? I remember when Albert came up from Miami to Vermont. He was just like, what? The sun goes down at like 2:30? What? Oh no! And he got so depressed, and we looked it up online. I was like, why is he so weird right now? What's wrong with Albert? He's from Miami. I mean, there's got to be something wrong with him now that he's up here. Is it too cold for him? No, he's used to mountains. Looked it up. Of course, there's like a syndrome for people who are used to lots of sunlight, going somewhere where it's dark all day and getting depressed. There's like a thing. I forgot what it's called, but it's. So would you guys care if it was dark all the time, as long as you had an internet? Wendell, would you care if the sun ever came up? Which would you trade for, internet or daylight?
Internet, hands down. Don't even care about daylight. In fact, I can get an artificial LED bulb, right? I mean, we can do the LED artificial lighting thing. I'll think it's sunlight. It won't really be. But my whatever biological responses there are, I could totally fake it.
Yeah, you just go get something that'll make your body, or something that'll give you the vitamin D you need. Or you just take vitamin D supplements. That's a big part of it, is the vitamin D supplements. As soon as you move somewhere that's darker.
Electrodes to the brain, I'll be fine.
So that's that. I want to know what you guys think. My take on it, I don't know. That's my take on it. I don't know. Probably, I don't know.
How fast is the internet? We're talking AT&T DSL. I don't know. I might take the sunlight.
Yeah, because whenever it's like AT&T DSL speeds are like 5-10 megabits a second, I'm like, you know what? This is so slow. I'm going to go outside. That's the way it is. So let's just say at least 100 megabits, but possibly more. But the minimum will be 100.
Yeah,
I want to know what you guys think in the comments.
Not even worth considering. In fact, the first thing I'll do with that connection is order a sun lamp or whatever from Amazon, so that I can have artificial sunlight.
Maybe if you got a bunch of people together in each community, you could order a ton of those and mount them somewhere and have like sunlight for your neighborhood and turn it on and off during certain periods of time. Like, oh, it's 8 in the morning. Flip a switch. We won't need daylight savings time anymore. Actually, we don't even need daylight savings time now. I'm not sure why we still do it, but we wouldn't need it especially if there was no sunlight. So, yeah, let's figure out a way to nuke the sun. Maybe that's something good for Donald Trump to do once he gets into office, since he's going to probably win because Americans are so hateful. Maybe once he gets in there, he can figure out a way to blow up the sun. If we can convince him somehow that the sun is trying to invade.
Some of the GOP have threatened not to nominate him even if he's got the delegates, which I guess you can do in our voting system. It's news to me, whatever.
Cool. Sure. All right. What's next on the menu here? How about that? In Denver, in Colorado, the police have been abusing all this information that's been coming in. They've been abusing the databases. They've been abusing all the NSA stuff, all the collection for personal use. And, everyone was like, oh, this is... If for anyone out there who was saying, like, oh, this is good stuff, we don't have to worry about this. And then we said, what about personal abuse? And they're like, oh, they're law enforcement officials. They're professionals. Are they? They've been using it to get girls' phone numbers? That's a thing that would happen on here. They got a little slap on the wrist. That's it. They didn't get any major punishment. Just hey, did you call this girl from that data that we sucked up? Yeah. Stop that. Oh, God. Go eat another donut. That's pretty much what it was.
Let's not forget also the police precinct that was passing around data captured through Stingray and through the devices that save copies of people's cell phones to see who could find like the raciest pics. Like it was a contest in the to see who could come up with the most clever stuff or whatever from people's phones. It's just stolen data. Turns out any organization made up of people can have awful people in it because people can be awful. Who knew?
So would you rather have a bunch of robots running thing? I mean, there'd probably be less of a chance for abuse, but that brings us to the next thing here. Okay, go ahead.
How crazy is it that when you realize that you're conditioned to think of people in organizations like that as different from regular people, how crazy is it when you realize that, no, everywhere is just regular people, and just because they're in these roles doesn't mean they're not just regular people. How crazy is that when you realize that?
It's just a uniform, and a lot of times the uniform can disguise. It's like you can get the wolf in sheep's clothing type thing, because it's, I don't know, the cop uniform, the military uniform. Some of these uniforms can really do a lot to disguise. Anyway, that brings me to the next thing. Go ahead.
It happens in the technical industry too, because in the technical industry, it's like, I'm the system administrator. I know all and I see all, and that draws a certain personality type too. But it's real easy to reconcile that in your head. You just keep in mind that everybody that you interact with are just people, and then when your expectations have been lowered to that, you'll be fine.
I've been standing here on my Segway for about 3 minutes now, and it's time for the real deal Segway. You just mentioned, like knowing all and seeing all. Well, that's doing something to the world. It's having a chilling effect, and it's silencing dissent. This is a very interesting effect that's happening to people, and this is based upon, just all of the information being out there. It turns out that when a person knows that anything they say on the internet or anything they say anywhere that there may be eyes or ears, they know that if that's being listened to, it actually changes what they say. That's kind of freaky.
We always talk about it, and it's like I was like, oh, the office Christmas party, let's get all crazy. And then it's like, oh, no, what if somebody sees something from the office Christmas party? That's going to be really bad. No, okay, we can't tweet that. That has to be just our little secret. We always talk about how the GCHQ and the NSA have gone completely off the rails, and Australia has gone completely off the rails, and that Verizon and AT&T are spying on you to offer you marketing awesomeness. It's like, no, this is a discount. We always talk about all this crazy stuff all these different companies are doing. And the reality is that all of this behavior the study has found that the consumer is aware of these kinds of things. It has a chilling effect on what they're willing to say and sort of the limb that they're willing to go out on as far as voicing dissent and things like that. And in a democracy, you need to be able to voice your opinion without being labeled a terrorist. Basically, we've got the Apple and the Apple and the FBI basically at each other's throats, and the FBI basically saying that Apple's in league with terrorists. Not really, I mean, hyperbole, but Uh, and then, Apple firing back saying that, this is un-American and the founding fathers would be appalled. Things happening in the UK with the Snoopers Charter and some new legislation in the UK as far as like spying on people and having having ISPs actually do the spying for law enforcement. Maybe that's going to be passed into law in the UK. Maybe not. We don't know. And so the net result of all of these things is less democracy and less dissent, less people willing to talk about things that they're not happy with. And as a society, that's very bad, because as a society, we hold that in and we just slowly get angrier and angrier until, one day you just snap and it's very bad.
Yeah, and basically the minority will no longer have a voice because the majority will be the only voice that is permitted, or the only voice that someone is not, I guess, too scared to mention. Then we switch back over to the UK. They got the GCHQ over there. They're watching everything. There's a camera on. There's basically a camera on every cat in the UK now. Just everywhere you look, dogs and cats with cameras walking around. There's another thing that the government might do. They actually want to do this. They want to force neighbors and friends to start spying on each other. So now you're no longer worrying about just everyone else. I mean, the government's looking at you and the cats and dogs with cameras mounted on their back. Now you got to worry about your neighbor spying on you because that's what they want.
Has anybody ever had any experience with a homeowners association? Imagine those assholes, reporting you and, checking in and whatever. Oh, it's just so dystopian. I can't even imagine that. It's just so distasteful. My skin crawls.
I think we need to open up a series of modern speakeasies. How can we guarantee that they're not bugged, though? And there have be no cell phones allowed. You have to check your cell phone, and then it'll be like a Faraday cage once you get inside. That would be kind of a cool place to set up. You can go in there and say anything you want. We'd probably have a bunch of idiots show up and just run inside and scream a bunch of ethnic slurs and be like, "That's not what this is for! Oh God, this is turned into like an indoor Xbox Live." That's not what this was made for.
Magna Carta of digital rights is what we need. Let's call it the Manga Carta.
Let's drink a coffee. That's kind of like what they did in Italy. They have a sort of a Magna Carta of digital rights. It's nice there. That's why PewDiePie moved there. That's my impersonation of PewDiePie. Give me $1 million. $1 million, please. Anyway, sorry. I had to do it. PewDiePie, if you're watching, good. You maybe it's good for you. Keep watching.
No one's watching.
No, not even anybody.
Not
all right,
anybody. It'll be one of those 12 views videos. Just
this video better have 12 views, or I'll come to every single person's house after 12 and cord cut. We'll come and cord cut.
I help them switch away from Comcast. We'll come to your house and help. It's like, I don't know. How's that work?
I'll go all over the country helping people switch away from Comcast and be like, yeah, well, your alternative is nothing, so I hope you enjoy sunlight.
The upcoming theme for a lot of the videos that we're going to have on the Tech Linux channel is going to be rolling your own services on the internet, looking at why hosts and a couple other things. But we're happy to announce we've got a deal, basically. If you want to get your own .tech domain name, .tech, you can get them for $5 if you use our promo code. So if you use tech, TECH, TEKLINUX, you can get your domain name for $5 instead of $50 for the first year. So if you want to set up your own hosting, I'm going to walk you through that in a bunch of videos and a whole bunch of other stuff. It's going to be really exciting. I know you can't wait. Heavy breathing, whatever. But this is a really good way for you to get your own domain name. And why you need your own domain name, we don't necessarily need your own domain name. If you want it, you can have it. I got Wendell.tech. That's kind of neat. But you guys can get your own .tech domain name and then actually host your own files, stream your own music, have your own server on the internet, do your email, whatever you want to do. And we're going to walk you through setting it up. So if you want to get a domain name for $5 and help us out, because we get a little bit of a commission on that, you can use Tech Linux as your promo code for the domain name. And so this is really exciting. We're going to have more details about this. This is just a little preview, but this should be really exciting. So if you're ready to buy your own domain name for $5, there's details in the description. You'll have to get your domain name from www.get.tech, but all the details are in the description, and you will need our promo code. So buy a domain name. I don't know, or don't, whatever. I don't care.
Anyway, let's move on and talk about the ISP. Speaking of Comcast, we've got some really bad news for people in Tennessee. So Tennessee had a huge success story, and that's Chattanooga. Now you can go to Chattanooga and get very affordable 10 gig, 10 gig connection. You can also get gigabit, and it's very, affordable, municipal, broadband, and all the powers that be, like AT&T and Comcast and all those guys. This is primarily about AT&T. They lost their freaking minds, and the Tennessee government is one of the worst in the country as far as just being completely, it may as well just be run by the corporations, because the AT&T, they ran in and they were like, hey, there's some other local companies that are trying to do this little loophole thing where they let power companies provide internet, and as long as it's within their footprint, and now they're trying to change a few rules to make sure that they can, or to allow them to provide internet outside of their coverage area for some of the local power companies. And they're, AT&T's freaking out about this. They're like, no, we can't have competition. This is a monopoly. We set this up. We did lots of work. We controlled the local officials, and we've got a monopoly. We can't let that go away. So when they're doing these meetings, like when the government's doing meetings, AT&T, they have representatives sitting there in the meetings. Why are, corporate executives sitting in government meetings?
Sad. The deal with Tennessee is really disturbing, and maybe if somebody lives there, they can help us fill in the gaps, because it was really hard to find complete information on what's going on in Tennessee. But it looks as though AT&T has successfully argued that the municipal public-private partnership, whatever, expansion should be stopped because it unfairly uses taxpayer dollars to compete with the private sector as far as ISPs go. Now, AT&T still has no intention of providing better service or equivalent connectivity or anything like that, but the gigabit ISP in Tennessee was ready to expand into new areas, and effectively they've been prevented from expanding into those areas because of this legislation. In at least one case, from what I was able to research, it was a committee of 5 that voted whether or not to allow the expansion into one particular area. It was a 3-2 vote against. One of the 3 was apparently a former AT&T executive. So AT&T has apparently gotten smart enough to, have people that are after their interests on the committees. They're not direct employees, but this guy used to have some type of affiliation with AT&T in an executive type capacity or something like that. It's like, wow, that's interesting. So, it seems to be a real kind of scorched earth policy that these companies are sort of taking with broadband expansion. And so ours has this article on, well, how good are we doing nationally now that we've got Google Fiber? And even taking into account Google Fiber, the competition is actually worse this year than it was last year.
Why is this happening? There, let me get that article on the screen. There it is, yeah. It's basically 90-something% of all the people who have signed up for one of the major companies like AT&T or Comcast. So
there's one other tiny little thing that I found funny that I'll share, which is Comcast was like, we're doing a controlled rollout in Atlanta of our unmetered gigabit service. What they meant by that was one guy in Atlanta has unmetered gigabit internet. One guy.
Yeah, where's the rest of that? That's kind of ridiculous, because here's the thing, like, they're pretending that they're competing with Google, right? Google offers symmetrical internet $70 in Atlanta. So Comcast rolls in, they're like, okay, yeah, we're going to give you gigabit too. And ours is $70 as well. Holy shit. And guess what else? We've got the fastest Wi-Fi, because they have Wi-Fi built into their stupid routers that they sell you and then use for a million other things that are inside your home. Well, what they don't tell you is you have to sign a 3-year contract to get the $70, or else it's going to be $130, which is still pretty inexpensive for gigabit, but they don't tell you that it's not symmetrical like Google service. It's like, 1 gigabit down, but only like 20 megabits up, so it's not that fast. On top of all that, you still have the 300 megabyte, yeah, they haven't gone there yet. You still have a 300 gigabyte data bandwidth cap, which you can burn through in gigabit in a matter of, seconds almost, minutes. So yeah, they have all these things, and I can't understand gigabit with a 300 gigabyte data bandwidth cap. It makes my brain hurt so bad.
Someone on one of those threads forwarded an email that had obviously been written by somebody, but it was one of those neighborhoods in Tennessee, and it was like 300 gigabytes. The only people that use 300 gigabytes are the people that download illegal pornography, and it's like, not just pornography, illegal pornography. And it's like, wow, they've done a really good job convincing people, like, no, it's like Netflix. It's, it's like, and apparently this was a really wealthy neighborhood too, because it was like, hey, come out and support us. You need to do this. And the homeowners in that area were like somehow had been convinced that this was pro Comcast and that 300 gigabytes was okay. And it's like, what level of brainwashing did you guys do? I mean, did you guys send in like a SWAT team and like recondition these people? I mean, what has been done here to brainwash these people into thinking this? This is absolutely absurd. I
don't even know.
The mind reels.
Do they mean like pirated pornography, or do they mean like really heinous sexual acts, as when they say illegal? What do they mean by illegal? Like
the email, one of the things in the email was literally the only people that would ever use more than 300 gigabytes a month are people downloading illegal pornography. Or people that don't actually use the internet, apparently. Either one.
Well, it hurts me so bad. You know what else hurts me? This other article here about Comcast and their failure to install internet for 10 months for a small business. And then they try to hit them up for $60,000 in fees. Yeah. So Comcast is one of our options at our new office. It's interesting, Wendell, the place that we have, there are a few different fiber lines running right down the street. And we can tap into one of these, but the owner of the building's like, 75-year-old, local, and doesn't know much about the internet and all that sort of thing. So they haven't actually tied fiber into the building yet. We can get that done, and it'll probably be what we do. But called up Comcast is one of the options. So I was like, let me just call them up and see. Yeah, they offer like 20 megabits per second up, and that's not nearly enough for us. But they're like, oh, we can gladly go ahead and connect you to fiber. Let's talk about that. And I was like, nope, not going to talk about it. Not going to talk about it. I've read this article here, and can you imagine if we had no internet for 10 months, and then after that they come back and they're like, oh yeah, we finally got around to this. We can do this if you give us $60,000 in fees. No, that was the problem with the problem with that is we sign a contract and they guarantee us, like they tell us we're going to give you fiber, but after we say, you know what, you're not giving us fiber, that's what happened. They said $60,000 in fees for getting out of their contract.
So
I botched that
kind of a microcosm of things that are happening here. The state of things in America, when you're talking about a commercial internet connection, a lot of the laws that are designed to protect consumers do not apply to businesses. And so the last few years, especially these mega ISPs, not just Comcast, Time Warner does this too, have these really, really awful one-sided contracts typically that you have to enter into a very long-term deal if you need anything more advanced than the most basic cable. And even these kind of contracts have actually started showing up for like cable internet service. So this particular office had signed up for one of the top tier cable packages for cable internet services. So nothing special, no fiber, whatever. They couldn't provide that. And then they said, well, we can provide fiber, we can't provide copper, we can't provide the cable internet service, which I think is kind of bait and switch. But this business said, okay, yeah, sure, we'll do that. Then they couldn't deliver the fiber either, and then they wanted to charge them the full value of the contract, even though they didn't provide the service, which I think if pressed legally, that would not fly in court, because you can't, it's like renting a house. If you enter a lease and you rent a house to somebody and then you break the lease, you're out your deposit, but then if the landlord turns around and rents it to somebody else, as soon as they rent it to somebody else, you're not on the hook for the remainder of the lease. At least that's how it works in most places, although not all, and there are some exceptions to that. It can be argued that it's kind of like that with internet service, but nobody's really pressed the point. And so these companies will basically say, well, you owe us for all of the internet service that you would have had for the term of the contract from now until the end of time, or from now until the end of the contract, which in this case was about $60,000 of internet service. Now, of course, when Ars Technica contacted Comcast, that magically went away, as one would expect it to do. But that is the state of things here in America. And so because people are in these long-term contracts, there is not really a good way for businesses immediately to move to a new ISP if it were available on the business side of things. And the business side of things is really where an ISP can make a lot of money if they provide good connectivity, good service, and at a good speed.
I don't even want to talk about the AT&T article. I'm sick of it. AT&T, they're charging for privacy. They're making it like a premium for. Why? Can we just line them all up and shoot them or something? Maybe we could put them on a spaceship to the sun to go explore?
we always talk about this. We'll summarize it. ISPs are completely out of control. The problem that's happening now is ISPs are organizing, and they're organizing effectively. They are organizing to take your privacy away. They want to spy on all your unencrypted traffic, apparently, and charge you more. Like, they'll charge you the same amount, but then if you don't want them to spy on you, they'll charge you more, which seems insane. And AT&T is blatantly doing this, according to this thing on Broadband reports. And we've seen the thing that happened with Verizon. They only got fined $1.25 million. Comcast is off the rails. It's not a good situation. If you're if you're one of us and you need good internet and good infrastructure and you need somebody to not be meddling with your bits, it's very bad. And we need to all freak out and do something about it. That's about it. Oh no, you're muted.
I can't handle it. I'm like ready to go door to door punching these executives. It's so anti-consumer. It's not even funny. Yeah. All right. Let's say thanks to the the Patreon members now that I'm all flustered. So 1,103 people. Thanks very much. You guys are awesome. Plus all the guys on tech support. You're keeping us alive. I want to say, I almost said you guys were the coolest members, but I know there's a lot of guys out there who just don't have the extra money. Don't sweat it. If you enjoy the content, it's free. Have fun with it. Enjoy it. You guys are keeping us alive, and I want to make sure it's available to all. There's not any secret hidden content or anything like that. So thanks to everybody. The Patreon page changed. It looks a little different now. I guess you click over here and become a Patreon. So yeah. I'm waiting on someone to sign up for one of these here on the bottom. The $30,000 a month is still open. There's only 3 of them left. Get in there now for that $30,000 a month. That would I'd start doing documentaries immediately if someone signed up for that. We'd be the Anthony Bourdain of tech. Anyway, let's move on. Oh, this is fun. Hillary Clinton's email archive is on WikiLeaks. And this is fun. It's interactive. You can go over and search for stuff. So I just typed in TPP here and pressed enter. And look at all these interesting. Let's see what we got here. Should I search for something else? What's a fun thing to search for? Wendell, let's search for something real quick live here. How about,
Billary?
What is it? Hillary?
Billary.
Billary?
Like Hillary, but with Bill. Billary.
Billary? See if anybody's talking about Billary. Oh, here we go. L article. There's an L article here. All right. Where's Billary? The Billary legend. Wow, this is a long article here. There's only one mention of it. Launching his first campaign for U.S. representative as part of the Billary legend.
I wonder if she gets brought up on charges. She drops out of the presidential race. Does that sew it up for Bernie? I don't know.
See, that's the thing. She should be. Any other person in the country would be brought up on charges already for this. Billary, yeah, it's all.
How is it that the FBI wants source code for Apple's, iPhone, but we the people can't get the source code to the voting machines? How does that work?
It's because if they show you, you'll be like, what? I press one thing, it does another? What? There's an algorithm to make it look fair, but it's not? What? Anyway, all right, let's talk about hardware stuff. Nvidia GameWorks has done something very interesting. They've made their source code for their latest version of GameWorks. They've published their source code. It's still not, okay, it is still not open source. This is not an open source piece of software, but they've made their source code available to the public. So that could be handy for people making games. We're actually using a small piece of Nvidia GameWorks. And that's only because AMD's option, or the more open option, is not really, it doesn't really work that well in the Unreal Engine. And that's the Hairworks. I think it's what it's called, Hairworks. Yeah, Nvidia Hairworks. We're using that for some of the hair in the game because I want the beautiful hair. And it will work on an AMD card, kind of, maybe. But Tress Effects just really doesn't work in the Unreal Engine. That's kind of depressing. I was like, no, let's use Tress Effects. And then everyone's like, can't do it. So yeah, anyway. This program has such bad press, but maybe this is a step in the right direction. Maybe. If they completely open it up, that'll be very interesting. But, giving them the source code, I think the comments are kind of fun here as well. One of the first things that people mention is like, oh, now that the source code is available for anyone to just go and like look through. There will be fewer people yelling and screaming about the actual program being written to sabotage AMD. I wonder if people will go through there and find out, hey, there's a little piece of code here called screw AMD. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I don't think so, but I don't know. It's made for Nvidia stuff. I don't have much of anything else to say about it, but
at the very least, it may help AMD bridge the gap from a software engineering perspective. Although it will require clean room development, AMD won't be able to wholesale port the code to their existing stuff. But what AMD could do is pay a team to look at the source code, and then pay another team to not look at the source code, and then have the people that looked at the source code tell the people that didn't look at the source code what to do. And maybe that would be okay. That used to be okay. That was okay in the 80s. That's how we got cloned computers. But I don't know if that's still okay under the law. Hopefully it is.
This next article here is AMD's Pro Duo. I actually kind of want one of these. It's 2 Fury GPUs together. 16
It's $1,500. No.
That's about right.
No.
Sounds about right.
Jesus
It's
Christ.
more than twice the price of one of those. So yeah, but one of the interesting things about the article, one of the takeaways, is they mentioned some different things like VR headsets with. I'm not sure if it's in this article, but they've been doing a lot of talking lately. They were like, "Hey, we may have a VR thing coming out that's going to have 4K in each eye." That sounds a bit ridiculous. And then they also mentioned here that imagine a VR headset that's also an entire computer. So I was like, oh, so all that extra space that the Oculus Rift has on your head, maybe you'll just install a CPU and a GPU in there and roast someone's eyes? I don't know what they're going on about, but they're saying a lot of interesting things right now. A VR headset, maybe this is a few years down the road when things get a little smaller and lower power, but a VR headset that has an entire computer in it. So you can just get on the train and sit there and not know that there's someone about to mug you.
See, I don't, the whole, put the computer in the headset, I would much rather have a lighter headset and wear something like wear a belt or wear something that hangs on my back or some kind of a backpack or something. I don't want something heavy on my head, and if like whatever would be the lightest thing possible would be good.
Yeah, here's a picture of it on the screen, and I found there's an article right here, but it's an AMD FX 8800P processor. It's got the Radeon R7 graphics, so it's not going to be crazy powerful. 256 gigabyte SSD, 8 gigs of RAM, and 2560 by 1440 OLED display, 110 degree field of view. So there it is. Interesting. Just play this video for just a second. I'll mess around with it. VR is kind of... I'm very disappointed right now in the Oculus Rift stuff that's happening, but we'll get to that after a while. I think the Oculus Rift is pretty cool, but I'm kind of disappointed in some of the stuff they're doing. Next bit of news is just Intel's 14-nanometer Kaby Lake processors are going to start shipping in Q3. And then the 10 nanometer stuff is not going to be out until Q3 of 2017, so quite a ways off on that. And
now these are mostly mobile processors.
They're low power. Low power. Extremely low power. So yeah, I'm not looking for this. I mean, they're saying it's going to be faster, but these things are the advertised, speed and all that sort of thing. It's usually whatever with these new CPUs. We'll see. Maybe when we get down to 10 nanometer, it'll be something to write home about. But
there was one of the things that they were talking about. So some of the Intel marketing people were on the Asus podcast this week, and it was really good. It was really interesting because they talked about some of the performance gains and stuff in Skylake, and they kind of hinted at some of the stuff that's coming in Kaby Lake. One of the things in Skylake that has not gotten a lot of press coverage is the hardware is now able to manage its sleep states and power utilization, power usage. And so that means that the processor can basically go from sleep to wake in like 1 millisecond in some cases. Historically, the software-defined version of the sleep-wake thing could be as bad as 100 milliseconds from the power state thing. I think apples to apples, the new Skylake thing is like 35 milliseconds from a worst-case low power to a worst-case high power situation, and the equivalent prior generation was like 100 milliseconds. But for most things, the CPU can wake up immediately. The impact of that is that if you have a device that has a touchscreen or something like that, that's basically sleeping with whatever's displayed on the screen, when you touch the screen, it can immediately wake up. It feels snappier than the previous generations. They're apparently pulling out all the stops and doing a lot of improvements like that. So in terms of like instructions per clock or anything like that, I don't think we're really expecting anything revolutionary. I think, again, the real improvements here, like the previous generation, is going to be around peripheral interface, graphics, power utilization, sleep wake, that kind of stuff. The sleep wake stuff on Intel Skylake, if you don't know about it, you owe it to yourself to go learn a little bit more about that, because it is a really interesting thing that they're doing with that on Skylake. And the software hasn't even caught up yet. The only device I know of that really takes advantage of it is the Surface Pro 4 and the Surface Book. But they still haven't got the software on that quite right to handle those power states. It's actually been a little bit of a debacle with the power management on the Surface Pro 4 and the Surface Book, because they're like, yeah, we're going to be bleeding edge. There's not really good support for that type of power management in the operating system yet, which is Windows 10, which is kind of funny because it's a Microsoft laptop and a Microsoft operating system, and they're still facing engineering challenges. And in fact, the engineering challenges are so crazy, that's why Microsoft says they don't want to support old processors on new Windows anymore, because they've got to redo how all of that's handled. This is going to be another iteration of that, where it's like not really instructions per clock gains, they're just improving all the other stuff.
Here's the way it goes. This is kind of fun. How about some of that galvanic vestibular stimulation, Wendell? Last time I said that to a girl in a bar, I got slapped. Hey, would you like some galvanic vestibular stimulation? I'll tickle your inner ear. I got slapped really fast. Anyway, so Samsung has got a very interesting idea. We've got all this VR stuff, and they were like, you know what? You're experiencing another world. You're pretty much encapsulated, experiencing your VR world. You should experience motion as well. So they have developed sort of a pair of headphones that is able to stimulate your inner ear with some different pulses and electrical signals and that sort of thing, and it makes you feel like you're moving. They should just call this the vomit comet and be done with it. I wonder how sick this is going to make people. I want to try this, as I usually don't get sick from stuff like this. But there's other implications as far as the technology goes, just beyond just VR. I wonder if they could use this to correct people who have inner ear problems. I wonder if they could use this to sort of balance and correct it. That could be interesting. So you'll see someone who normally was walking sideways and doing cartwheels and vomiting. They'll have on a pair of headphones and they'll be able to walk forward. I don't know. Is there other people out there who have some sort of disorder that messes with their inner ear that make them do cartwheels and vomit? I don't know. If I offended anyone, I hope so. God, I've been saying so much shit. I hope I offended somebody. Anyway,
I want to give this a try.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes, I'll take the headphones in my vestibular. Never mind. That turned into a mess. Someone clean it up. Science stuff. Is it already time for science stuff? Yeah, I believe it's time for science stuff. Wendell, I'll let you talk about this one. Experiment shows magnetic chips could dramatically increase computer's energy efficiency. So this is somewhere in between science. It's kind of a decent segue between the hardware stuff and science.
We just thought we'd share this article because adding a magnetic component to integrated circuits means so that we're actually able to sort of capture and store the energy and then reuse it for something else. And so right now, all of the heat that comes from a CPU or a GPU or whatever, that's the energy, that's sort of the waste energy. And this is, well, hey, why don't we shunt some of that energy or all of that energy? The article says the promise is that a lot of this energy could actually go into setting and resetting these magnetic states, which would dramatically reduce sort of the heat component of that. But it would also turn, because it's stored magnetically, you would also be able to turn that into usable energy, maybe, potentially. So we thought this was a really interesting article to say that, hey, magnetics may be coming back, but not for data storage as it has been with mechanical hard drives, but we may actually be able to see some version of this on integrated circuits, which is really exciting because of the promise that it holds potentially.
Let's take a look at what Jeff Bezos is doing. He's saying that millions of people are going to live in orbit, and he's got his company, Blue Origin, and they're working on all kinds of different things, but they're going to start launching some stuff from Florida. So, I wonder what this article is kind of devoid of too many different details, but what is he going to do once he gets up there? They're going to set up a gigantic warehouse that for Amazon, and then as the Earth turns, this will turn in the opposite direction, and then they'll shoot stuff to the Earth on some kind of package that'll navigate through the atmosphere. Is that what he's going to do? I don't think so. I don't really know what his intention is, why he thinks we're all going to be up there, but it's an exploration company, but maybe mining in outer space. I don't know. Millions of people living in orbit. We gotta work on some technology so that the muscles and bones don't atrophiate and all that first, I think. But yeah, ultimate vision. Bezos, the dread pirate of space.
I think we've got to be at least 20 years away from that, sadly. I would love to be able to work in space, but just don't see it happening in my lifetime.
Yeah. All right, we got a lot of gaming stuff to talk about today. The CryEngine, the latest version, CryEngine 5, has gone completely free. Pay what you want. That's it. And they're going to make their... See, these guys were a little bit late to the pricing game. They're behind now Unreal Engine and Unity, which have given people... Here's a pretty much free version of the program. Go and create your games. Once you start making money, then you can give us some money. So that's kind of what they're going to do right here, but I think they're going to rely upon the marketplace to make their money. If you go over here to the marketplace, you can buy assets and that sort of thing. There's a lot of free stuff in the marketplace, but this could be really big for indie developers, and it's a really powerful engine. It's freaking beautiful. Arguably the best graphics, but once you see, once you see this other thing over here, this Unity real-time demo, I don't know, we can probably argue a little bit. This is freaking beautiful. Look at this stuff that's being rendered in real time. But you can go ahead and I'm playing the Unity demo right now. But you got any ideas on this on the free, I guess, CryEngine?
I saw the improvements to not just this game engine, but there were a lot of announcements this week about improvements to these various game engines, and there are tech demos. Now, some of these tech demos we've seen before, but some of them have been recently re-rendered with improved technology from the engines. Better lighting, better shadows, better real-time movement. And the really exciting thing about a lot of these demos is that they are real-time rendering with current hardware. Now, granted, it's top-shelf current hardware, but this is real-time rendering with current hardware. Holy crap. If that's true, I think it's probably true. If that's true, that is mind-blowing. These graphics are insane. Can you imagine the next games built with this? I mean, we've finally gotten photorealistic at this point. How much more improvement can there be?
You go back and watch Toy Story 1 right now. I don't think Toy Story 1 looks as good as this Atom demo from Unity. I do not think it looks this good, and this is real time. Yeah.
Look at the texture deformation and just the shadowing, and it's nuts.
The lighting effects are what get me, because it's this soft lighting with a little bit of bokeh, volumetric fog behind him. It looks way too real. Even the eyes and everything. So yeah, Unity's doing pretty well. And then we've got some Unreal Engine 4 news. This is kind of a totally different direction right now. So CryZenX has been playing around with the Unreal Engine and Zelda: The Ocarina of Time, one of the best games ever made, arguably, of course. But I'm sure in his opinion, he made a while back a interesting demo where you could run around in the Temple of Time and then the music was there and everything. He's gone a step farther, and now he has a rendering of Death Mountain in the Unreal Engine 4. So seeing Zelda in this much detail is just, jeez. I really want to go replay Zelda now. But it won't look like this, so I'm not going to want to play it. Emulators don't even look that good. I wonder if he's going to try to remake the whole game, and Nintendo will come down on him so hard. See, if Nintendo was smart, they would cooperate with him and be like, you know what? Let's work with this guy. Let's re-release this on PC and charge, a bit of money for it and watch people go rebuy this old game because it's been redone. Maybe they'd even bring this version of the game over to, the Wii or something, the Wii U. I don't know if it'll work on a Wii U, but there's that. He also did the Zora's Domain here. He's done a lot of work on this game. It's kind of ridiculous. Slipping and sliding around. I really want to go play this, but I can't. Alright, so there's that. I got another remake for you, Wendell. Have you seen the System Shock 1 remake in the Unity engine? We've seen some pictures of this.
Remake is mind-blowing.
So this is probably, oh man, System Shock 1. I thought it was a more interesting game than System Shock Part 2 as far as the plot and just the style of game. But it was also so new, and the mechanics behind it were really, really clunky, and the graphics were just awful. So it was a bit much to ask for a lot of people, but it was still, I mean, I think PC Gamer gave it a 95%. That's back when PC Gamer was smart. When they had a bunch of guys working there who actually played PC games. But yeah, this looks really freaking amazing. A lot of people say that BioShock is a sort of a successor. It is not on the same level. Like, nowhere near. System Shock is on 3 levels higher as far as the nerd factor goes, and just the depth and everything else. BioShock's cool and all that, but this is on another level. So, can't wait to play that. More video game news. We got plenty. So, Oculus is going to be out March 28th, and there are 30 launch titles. You know what? I'm kind of going to boycott the Oculus. I really don't like the fact that they're making so many titles exclusives. I know they threw a lot of money at these titles. I know they jumped in and they were like, hey, let's make some exclusive Oculus titles. But this is like a monitor company like BenQ going to a bunch of developers and being like, hey, we want to make games that are only going to work on BenQ monitors. Are you with us? We'll throw you some money. That's about what it's like. I mean, there are more differences, yes, in the different VR headsets, but this is going to become a standard thing in the future, just like a monitor. And this is something I mean, a lot of people out there are immediately going to start saying, like, well, Oculus, because this and this, it has to be exclusive. I talked to some people inside the industry who work for these companies. One guy who even worked for Oculus, I'm not allowed to say his name, but at one of the trade shows, I was like, so what's up with the exclusivity? And he kind of scoffed, and he was like, man, anything that works on an Oculus is going to work on other VR headsets as long as they're somewhat similar. So the HTC Vive should be able to play these games. And there's already people who are able to hack some of these exclusive games to get them to play on other hardware. So my little rant is that I think it's kind of stupid that they're limiting it to their hardware. I know they're trying to push their hardware platform and like it's a console. It is expensive and all that, but I don't know. I feel like the hardware should be one choice, like a monitor, and then if you want to go buy a game, you go buy a game. It's a PC game after all. It's not like if this was tied to a PlayStation, like the PlayStation VR or whatever, maybe, but I don't know. Exclusivity's got me upset. Do you have a different take on this, or I know they've spent money on these games, but
I'm gonna sort of adopt a wait and see approach. I have a feeling that the exclusivity stuff is going to disappear in the first 3 months, if not the first month. I'm really excited by the Portal VR demos.
That's the Vive.
And so it's sort of a different platform, and I'm really excited to see what direction that Gaben goes in with the technology. And so it is going to be an interesting sort of story that unfolds this year, I think. And I think by this time next year, things will have settled down a little bit. But this is very much the Wild West, and this is very much Oculus trying to do sort of an initial capture of the market. And in the long run, I don't think it's going to work out for them. But what would work out for them in terms of market capture is if they deliver a solid experience and a solid product. And if they're delivering a solid experience and a solid product because they've got to tweak the experience for the hardware, then I don't mind so much that these titles are exclusives. But I do think that they're cutting off their nose to spite their face a little bit in that nobody is going to buy 2. And so if Oculus doesn't end up being the thing to have, then it's going to be very bad for them.
We'll keep an eye on it. All right, I'll give you guys, since we're talking about all these video games, I'll give you guys one quick update on the Zweihander video game. We've got some of the models important to the game, working on some of the animations and that sort of thing. I've been doing a lot of work on writing the dialogue tree scripts and that sort of thing, some of the quests and stuff, using the same program that like the games like The Witcher 3 and Star Citizen, using the same program. I'm using that Artisy Draft program. That's the same program they use to organize and create their quests and dialogue trees. Anyway, I wanted to have some quests that were, like, hey, can you meet me here tonight at 9 o'clock? And I mentioned that to the developer, and he's like, well, we don't have a day-night system. And I was like, can you make one? And he's like, I don't know. Anyway, he came back like 5 hours later. He's like, check this out. Is this what you wanted? And he also went a step farther. I really like the guys we have working on this. He went a step farther, and he added some stuff like fog during certain parts of the day. Like when the sun is first coming up, there's going to be a little dew, and there's going to be some fog in the mornings. So I'll go ahead and let 1 day cycle go by, just so you can see it here in the game. I think he did a pretty good job with it. And then the moon comes out, it gets a little brighter, clouds move over, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, the game's coming along. It's going to be a long development process, but it's coming along. That's pretty much it for the show today. Thanks to everybody who did whatever deserves thanks. How's that for a thank you at the end? That'd be my Oscar speech. I was going to be thanks to everybody who wants to be thanked, and then but bye. If I ever win an Oscar, I don't want to win one of those things. Or maybe I'll just throw it and run, and I don't know. Now I want to win an Oscar just so I can do something stupid on stage. I'm rambling. St. Patrick's Day. You going to do anything?
Nope.
I guess today's the day after Thanksgiving. Today's the day after St. Patrick's Day. I hope Massachusetts is still like on the map. I hope it hasn't like all burned to the ground. I bet it has though. Everyone in Boston, Lean, really, I got something to tell you. Hey! No, that's for all your hangovers. All right, we'll see you guys later. Turn this off.
See ya.